The Wormkeeper's ledger. It started as a whisper, a flicker in the air, a promise of something profound. But the world is a cruel judge of the peculiar, and my family was its loudest jury. They threw scorn at my passion, calling my obsessive vermicomposting insane, delusional. "He's hoarding worms in the basement again," they'd snicker, their faces twisted into mockery, as I tried to explain the wonders of bioremediation, my hands covered in soil, my heart racing with the thrill of discovery. But they didn't understand. I could feel their laughter creeping behind me like a shadow, suffocating my voice. When I exposed the contaminated crops at the corporate farm, I thought I'd finally unveiled a hidden truth, something that mattered. Instead, I lost everything. I was branded a pariah, the cry of a madman who incited panic. My family stood at the forefront, shaking their heads in disgust, their eyes narrowing with disdain. "You'll disgrace us," my father warned, his voice a grave ultimatum. Years rolled by like the relentless churn of earth underfoot, and in my seclusion, I became a different person, obsessed but resilient. Those oversized worms, once a source of laughter, transformed into dark guardians of forgotten truths. They taught me to listen. Beneath the surface, they sang songs of decay, whispered secrets of rot dissolving into life. Each squirming mass, born from the depths of my relentless study, attracted something dreadful that many had long buried. I was now a keeper of secrets, a survivor of horrors no one dared to confront. I returned home yesterday, the weight of my knowledge pressing down like a shroud. The house stood uncaged, a monument to their disbelief, but I was no longer the helpless soul they had mocked. I arrived not to ridicule, but to reveal. As I stepped inside, the familiar scent of stale air collided with memories of derision. My family was there, staring at me with a blend of disbelief and muted curiosity. The tension hung thick, an uninvited guest at the table. "Look at you," my mother scoffed, her tone tinged with something else, a hint of fear perhaps. "You really think you're an expert now?" "Mom," I began, but the words got caught in the web of contempt spinning around us. I pulled out the leather-bound ledger from my satchel, covered in cryptic inscriptions and illustrations of the very worms that had given me my power. "You have to listen. I've uncovered what those like you dismiss." I could see them shifting uncomfortably, the laughter I once loathed, now transformed into an unsettling silence. "These worms," I continued, forcing the tremor in my voice to subside, "they can feed off rot, yes, but they also attract something darker, something that has been buried beneath our feet." When I opened the ledger, the air turned electric, as if the house itself were recoiling. Their expressions twisted from ridicule to genuine concern. "What do you mean?" my father finally asked, his bravado faltering. "What did you find?" And that's when it happened. From behind the drawing room wall, a low, keening sound emerged. It was a cacophony of whispers, slithering through the air like smoke. In the dim light, I could see the flickering shadows dance on their faces, a reflection of the horror I had grown accustomed to. My heart raced, but it was no longer fear. It was a vindication born of truth. "This is what you dismissed," I whispered, pointing to the wall where the shadows formed grotesque shapes. "This is what you thought was a joke." The room grew cold, the laughter of the past echoing in a haunting chorus. The shadows morphed, twisting into forms that looked like the very worms I nurtured. But these were not ordinary creatures. Their bodies glistened with a sickly sheen, and their eyes glinted with a hunger that went beyond comprehension. They slithered across the floor, drawn by the energy that pulsed from my ledger. "What have you done?" my mother gasped, her face paling as she stumbled back. I've done what you never would, I replied, my voice steady even as the shadows loomed closer. I've confronted the darkness you all feared, and now you'll witness it too. Suddenly, the ground beneath us trembled, the walls vibrating with the weight of ancient secrets unleashed. The family gasped as the shadows surged forward, breaking free from the confines of mockery that had bound them for so long. They collided with my family in a frenzy of writhing limbs, a vortex of what lay buried beneath their laughter, now rising to the surface, consuming their disbelief. In that moment, I felt a bittersweet triumph. They watched, paralyzed by the very ignorance they had clung to for years. The creatures writhed and coiled around them, devouring their breath, their laughter, everything they had once held dear. I stood at the threshold, no longer the disgrace they once imagined, but a keeper of truths, finally recognized, terrifyingly so. As the shadows receded, leaving behind a cold silence, the remnants of my family collapsed to the ground, their eyes wide with fear and understanding. They had witnessed firsthand the consequences of their disbelief, a haunting reminder of all they had ridiculed. I knelt beside them, my voice barely a whisper. Know that the truth can be terrifying, but it is also liberating. I stepped back, allowing the silence to envelop the room like a suffocating embrace. The ledger lay open, the words now pulsing with life. I had survived what they never would, stumbling out of the darkness into a harsh light that both terrified and freed me. The weight of vindication settled upon me, a chilling crown woven from shadows and wormholes. As I turned to leave, I glanced back at the figures huddled on the floor, their faces locked in horror, their laughter now turned to echoes in the hall. I smiled, a bittersweet farewell to my past. They would remember this moment, etched forever in the annals of their skepticism. And as I stepped out into the world, I felt the worms beneath my feet, the whispers of the earth reminding me that I was no longer alone.